Today, we're diving into a pretty fascinating linguistic secret. It's hidden in a 1400-year-old text, the Quran, and it makes this surprisingly modern distinction between sunlight and moonlight. So the big question is, how did an ancient text get this so right?
Okay, so we all learned this in school, right? The sun makes its own light, and the moon is basically just a giant dusty mirror reflecting it. It's Astronomy 101 for us. But just stop and think about that for a second. How could a text from way back then, centuries before modern telescopes, possibly have picked up on that scientific fact?
Well, it turns out the answer isn't really found by looking up at the stars, but by looking much, much closer at the words themselves. The whole secret is actually embedded right there in the original Arabic language of the text.
So check this out. When the text talks about the light from the sun, it uses the word dia. But for the moon's light, it switches to a completely different word, nur. Now you might think, okay, they're just synonyms for light, what's the big deal? And yeah, in some contexts they can be. But their specific meanings here, well, that's where things get really interesting.
Let's start with dia. This word isn't just a generic term for brightness, no. Its very specific meaning is a light that comes directly from its own source. It's a self-generating primary kind of glow. Think of it as the source itself.
To make this super clear, let's use a simple analogy. Picture a light bulb. Dia is like the glowing hot filament inside. You know, the part that's actually creating the light from its own energy? It is the source.
Okay, so now let's look at our second word, nur. And this is a total contrast to dia. Nur describes a secondary kind of light. It's the illumination you get when light bounces off of something else. By its very definition, it's reflected light.
So, going back to our light bulb, if dia is the filament burning bright, then nur is the light that fills the entire room. It's not the source, but it's the light that bounces off the walls, the floor, your furniture. It's what actually lets you see everything.
All right, so keeping those two definitions in your head, let's look at the actual verse. It says God made the sun a dia, a radiant source, and the moon a nur, an illuminating or reflected light. Wow, the distinction is right there, spelled out in the text.
I mean, it's a perfect match, right? The sun, which we know creates its own light through nuclear fusion, gets the word for a direct source. And the moon, which we know is just reflecting the sun's light, gets the word for reflected light. Pretty incredible.
You see, this goes way beyond just being a poetic choice. It's not just flowery language. The specific vocabulary being used here makes a clear and, as it turns out, a scientifically accurate distinction between how sunlight and moonlight actually work. Let's just lay it all out one more time. You've got the sun, called dia, which means a radiant source, and then you've got the moon, called nur, meaning an illuminating, reflected light. For the time it was written, that is a remarkably precise description. So the bottom line is this. Using two different and technically correct words for two different kinds of light really seems to imply a level of astronomical understanding that was just way ahead of its time. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If such a precise scientific idea can be packed into the definitions of just two ancient words, what other kinds of profound knowledge might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered in the languages we use every single day?